Hi, I'm Don from DonDronesOn. This video is directed towards municipal leaders who are involved in updating or creating drone-related bylaws. These bylaws should reflect both the interests and needs of drone pilots as well as public concerns. Let's get into it. There are a lot of misunderstandings and misinformation around drones, so I'm going to start by talking about drones in general. Then brief you on the current Transport Canada regulations and related laws, and how drones can affect people in an urban environment. I'll close with a proposed wording for drone-related bylaws that balances drone pilot requirements with public concerns. The popularity of drones has really taken off in the past 10 years or so, if you pardon the expression. And this popularity includes the commercial world, such as real estate, the institutional realm, such as police or search and rescue, and particularly the recreational use of drones. And these are often intertwined because recreational drone pilots may progress into commercial work, search and rescue, or even into flying manned aircraft. Drones can be a training ground or entry point into many important job markets and industries, so we don't want to unreasonably limit their use. I'm going to concentrate on recreational drone use in this video, since that is the main focus of municipal bylaws. And to understand recreational drones, it helps to recognize that these break down into three categories: camera drones, FPV drones, and finally RC aircraft, which aren't really drones at all, but Transport Canada considers them all part of a family called remotely piloted aircraft systems, or RPAS. So we may as well talk about them all at the same time. Camera drones look like these kinds of things and are the most versatile kind of drones. They're used for cinematic videos, family photos, and that kind of thing. They're typically flown, well, above treetop level, let's say, and are directed with a remote control that provides detailed telemetry, such as altitude and distance, and allows the pilot to actually see what the camera on the drone sees. These drones usually have GPS navigation as well, so they can easily hover in place and automatically return to their launch point in the event of a controller disconnect. In addition to hobbyist drones, most commercial and institutional drones are essentially camera drones with varying numbers of rotors, sensor technology, and overall size. Camera drones are the most common type sold by companies like DJI. FPV drones are a bit different because they're flown using goggles and allow the user to have an incredibly immersive experience. It's like flying in the drone. Designed for thrill, FPV drones are typically flown fairly close to the ground and around obstacles in an acrobatic manner. They're extremely agile, allowing the pilot to dodge up, down, and around very nimbly. RC aircraft are models of manned aircraft or helicopters and can be electric or fuel powered. Now, there's a huge variety of types, from small foamies to immense replicas. The so-called foamies are quiet, lightweight, very safe, and typically are flown only very close to the pilot. Larger RC aircraft, on the other hand, typically require wide open spaces with some sort of runway and are usually flown in dedicated club facilities. All of these remotely piloted aircraft systems are governed under a set of Transport Canada regulations published in 2019 and expanded upon in 2025. These RPAS regulations are designed to minimize the risk to manned aviation and people on the ground, yet make it reasonably easy to fly drones in low-risk situations and ensure only those with more training can do higher risk operations. Now, I'm not going to dive into the details behind all of these regulations, but here's a quick overview. There are essentially 4 layers of rules based upon the degree of risk. The lowest risk is associated with microdrones, those under 250 grams in weight. The very popular DJI Mini series of drones falls into this category and are remarkably sophisticated for their size. But because they're so small and low risk, There are very few rules, as long as you don't do anything stupid. You don't need to register your drone, and no pilot certification is required. The Drone Pilot Association of Canada offers a free safety course, providing great guidance for people flying these small drones. If you fly a drone over 250 grams, there are 2 layers, again based on risk. If you stay away from airports and at least 30 meters away from bystanders, then it is considered a basic operation. The drone pilot needs to register their drone with Transport Canada and pass an exam. Major cities, however, typically have airports and heliports nearby, which means that pilots of drones over 250 grams must qualify for advanced operations. In order to fly an advanced operation, the drone pilot must pass the much tougher Advanced RPAS pilot exam and an in-person flight review test. In addition, each and every flight in the control zone of an airport must be pre-authorized through an app called NavDrone. In other words, riskier drone operations demand a higher level of pilot qualification. And underlying all of these types of operations is a fundamental regulation that applies to all drones down to the smallest of toys: reckless or negligent operation. No person shall operate a remotely piloted aircraft system in such a reckless or negligent manner as to endanger or even be likely to endanger aviation safety or the safety of any person. So Transport Canada has established a robust set of rules that all Canadian drone and RC aircraft pilots must follow, calibrated to a reasonable degree with the amount of risk associated with the size of drone and where it is flying. Now, you might be asking yourself, are these regulations enough? Aren't drones dangerously buzzing around all over the place? Well, it's certainly not the risk of fatal injuries that we need to be worried about. Here are some fun facts about the risks we face in everyday life. Deaths due to traffic accidents, 1 million worldwide every year. Lightning strikes, 24,000 people killed every year. Fatal shark attacks, about 10 per year globally. So where do you think deaths by recreational drones fall on this chart? And I'm not talking about Ukraine or other military situations. Well, there are no statistics on recreational drone fatalities because there has never been a death by a recreational drone, ever, anywhere. Drones are actually incredibly safe. And even injuries by drones are few and far between. The most common injury being a minor cut to the fingers when a pilot attempts to do a hand catch in the air. Now, I've done it. Sure, it hurts, but nothing a Band-Aid couldn't solve. Okay, so fatalities or even injuries are not really an issue with recreational drones. So let's talk about 2 reasonable concerns: privacy and disturbing people in general. Privacy is probably the number 1 concern from the public when talking about drones. Setting aside weird stuff like deliberate peeping toms, which would fall under federal or provincial offenses, the fact is that drones really have no impact on privacy when operating from public land like city parks. The legal perspective is that there is a privacy violation only when there is a reasonable expectation of privacy. And if you're a person in a city park, you don't have any grounds to expect privacy. You're on public land, surrounded by people with phones. Drones are no different than regular cameras in that kind of context where you're out in public view. And even if there was a case for infringement of privacy by a drone operator, this would not be a municipal matter. It would fall into either provincial or federal legal jurisdictions. So drone-related municipal bylaws should not be established on the basis of the protection of privacy. Which leaves us with disturbing people in general. And that honestly is legit. Drones can be noisy, and if someone is flying them around irresponsibly, say over your picnic lunch, it can be disturbing. But then again, many activities can be disturbing to your picnic lunch. someone throwing a football too close to you, or a frisbee, or any number of fairly normal and perfectly welcome park activities that can tick other people off if done without reasonable consideration. So why should drones be any different? Why can't someone who's following the Transport Canada regulations be allowed to fly in a park as long as they aren't disturbing other people in the area? Which brings us to my recommendation. Transport Canada has already established a strong set of regulations to fully address the aviation safety issues associated with drones. And other provincial and federal laws completely address the serious elements of any kind of behavior associated with being a nuisance or infringing on privacy. So, if a municipality feels there is still a need to include drones or RC aircraft in their bylaws, and I really don't think they need to, but if they feel strongly about it, it should be worded something like this. Remotely piloted aircraft, including drones and RC aircraft, are permitted to use municipal parks and public land, providing they follow applicable Transport Canada regulations and do not unreasonably infringe on other members of the public in the area. And given that parks often include natural habitats, optionally you could include a phrase like, and do not intentionally disturb wildlife. Now that kind of bylaw would allow responsible, safe drone pilots to enjoy parks like any other taxpayer, as long as they're not bugging other park users or doing stuff like chasing geese. That's a fair balance between the needs and desires of drone pilots and the public interest. Please consider this proposed wording when amending or creating bylaws in your community. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact the Drone Pilot Association of Canada at this email address. Thanks for watching and listening.